Controls A.5.1 and A.5.2 in ISO 27701 form the backbone of organizational governance for information security. Together, they define what the organization expects through policies and who is responsible for ensuring those expectations are fulfilled. These controls operationalize leadership commitments made in Clause 5, ensuring that strategic intent translates into daily behavior. A5.1 focuses on establishing, maintaining, and communicating a coherent policy framework that sets direction and boundaries for information security. A5.2 complements it by assigning defined roles and responsibilities, ensuring accountability for every decision, action, and control. Together, they make security governance auditable, actionable, and embedded in the organization's culture rather than confined to documentation. The policy framework under A.5.1 must be broad enough to encompass the full enterprise, spanning all business units, functions, and geographies. Policies must articulate how the organization protects the core principles of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, while also integrating legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations. Each policy should link explicitly to the organization's risk management strategy and business objectives, demonstrating that security supports rather than hinders operations. A good policy framework doesn't exist in isolation. It anchors itself within the ISMS governance model, connecting leadership direction with operational practice and providing the foundation for all subordinate standards, guidelines, and procedures. Every policy covered under A5.1 must possess certain key characteristics to be effective. It should be concise, current, and written in accessible language for its intended audience. Leadership approval is mandatory, demonstrating tone-from-the-top endorsement. Policies should be principle-based, outlining intent rather than prescribing every action, and reference relevant standards or frameworks that provide technical detail. Accessibility is critical. Employees must be able to find and understand the policy that governs their work. Finally, each policy must be measurable, with its effectiveness evidenced through supporting procedures, metrics, and audits. In short, the policy should not merely exist, it must guide and influence measurable outcomes. An effective policy architecture uses hierarchy and structure to maintain clarity and avoid duplication. At the top sits the enterprise-wide information security policy, expressing overarching commitments and principles. Beneath it are domain-specific sub-policies, covering areas such as access control, acceptable use, data classification, incident response, and supplier management. Each sub-policy is supported by detailed standards and guidelines that translate intent into specific control requirements. Finally, procedures and work instructions define step-by-step actions. Ownership should be mapped across these layers. Executives sponsor high-level policies, functional leaders own sub-policies, and process managers maintain procedures. This layered approach keeps documentation manageable and ensures that updates cascade smoothly across levels without contradiction. Policies, like systems, must follow a defined lifecycle management process to remain relevant. This begins with a planned review cadence, typically annual or biennial, along with triggers for interim updates in response to regulatory changes, incidents, or business shifts. All changes should pass through formal change control, with version history maintained for traceability. Obsolete documents must be deprecated under defined rules to avoid confusion from outdated guidance. Communication is equally vital. Updated policies should be distributed through internal announcements, acknowledgement systems, or learning modules to ensure awareness. A structured lifecycle process transforms policy management from a one-time writing exercise into an ongoing governance function. Evidence of compliance with A.5.1 requires tangible artifacts that auditors can review. These include policy approval records showing executive endorsement, publication logs or communication emails confirming distribution, and acknowledgement records from employees. Policies must be demonstrably aligned with the risk register and the Statement of Applicability, SOA, proving their connection to identified risks and controls. Audit trails should show how policy updates respond to changes in context or findings from previous reviews. Together, these artifacts demonstrate that the organization's policy framework is living and responsive, not static documentation created only for certification purposes. A5.2 shifts focus from the policies themselves to the people who make them real. This control defines the scope of roles and responsibilities, assigning ownership for policy implementation and control operation. Each significant activity, whether managing access rights, monitoring logs, or coordinating incident response, requires an accountable owner. Decision rights and escalation paths must be clearly documented, ensuring that authority aligns with risk impact levels. Substitute roles should also be defined to maintain continuity during absences, and shared responsibilities between functions must be explicitly acknowledged. A5.2 recognizes that information security is inherently cross-functional. It demands coordination among IT, HR, legal, operations, and executive teams, each contributing unique expertise and authority. Role modeling across the organization reinforces that accountability for security starts with leadership and cascades through every level. Executives set the tone by demonstrating commitment, allocating resources, and enforcing policy. Control owners manage specific technical or procedural safeguards and ensure their maintenance. Asset custodians handle operational tasks such as configuration, monitoring, and reporting. End users carry everyday responsibilities to handle information securely and comply with policies. Oversight bodies, such as risk committees or information security steering groups, provide challenge and direction, ensuring that accountability remains transparent. When these layers of responsibility operate cohesively, the ISMS functions as a unified system rather than a collection of disconnected activities. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Effective governance of roles and responsibilities under A.5.2 depends on clear RACI mapping, a structured way to define who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed for each key process or control. This mapping ensures that ownership is never ambiguous and that decision-making authority matches the potential impact of each activity. For example, risk treatment approvals might rest with executives, while implementation responsibilities belong to operational teams. Interfaces with suppliers and partners must also be defined, clarifying shared responsibilities across contractual boundaries. Regular reviews of the RACI matrix help identify gaps, overlaps, or outdated assignments that could undermine accountability. A well-maintained responsibility model keeps the ISMS agile, transparent, and defensible. Competence is tightly coupled with accountability. Each defined role must have documented competence requirements, the knowledge, skills, and experience necessary to perform effectively. Role-based training programs and professional certifications should be mapped to positions, ensuring staff have the capabilities appropriate for their responsibilities. Competence must be verified before assignment, not assumed, and periodically reassessed as technologies and threats evolve. Where skill gaps are identified, organizations should create formal remediation plans, including training, mentoring, or recruitment. This linkage between roles and competence transforms accountability from formality into genuine capability, ensuring that every control has both an owner and a qualified operator behind it. Translating policies and roles into daily operations requires practical examples of operationalization. In a patch management policy, for instance, the owner might be the head of infrastructure, while implementers are system administrators and the approver is the CISO or IT risk manager. For data classification, business unit stewards might determine sensitivity labels, while IT enforces technical restrictions. Incident response processes assign decision roles for escalation, communication, and containment, ensuring that authority to act is clear when time is limited. Supplier security policies often require coordination among procurement, legal, and information security to ensure third-party risk management aligns with contractual and operational needs. These scenarios illustrate how governance frameworks come to life through defined, tested workflows. Measuring the effectiveness of policies and roles ensures they are not only documented but functioning. Key performance indicators, KPIs, might track policy adoption rates or the frequency of exceptions requested. Key control indicators, KCIs, assess the health of controls linked to specific policies, such as how often access reviews are completed or how many overdue vulnerabilities remain. Audit findings can be analyzed by theme to reveal which policies are most frequently breached or misunderstood. Staff feedback and survey results add qualitative insight into whether policies are practical and clear. Together, these metrics provide a balanced picture of governance effectiveness, highlighting where additional clarification, enforcement, or simplification is needed. Even well-designed policies sometimes require flexibility. Exception and waiver governance allows for temporary, risk-justified deviations without compromising accountability. Requests must follow a formal process, including a documented justification, risk evaluation, and expiration date. Compensating controls should be defined and tracked throughout the exception's lifespan. Approvals must align with the organization's risk tiering. Minor deviations may be authorized by control owners, while high-risk exceptions require executive approval. Automated reminders or dashboards can flag pending reviews before expiry, ensuring exceptions do not silently become permanent. This structured approach balances operational agility with risk control, maintaining governance integrity while accommodating business realities. Common pitfalls across A.5.1 and A.5.2 usually stem from poor alignment between intent and execution. Generic policy templates borrowed from external sources rarely fit an organization's specific context, leading to contradictions or irrelevance. Undefined authority structures create decision bottlenecks, as staff hesitate to act without clarity on who can approve exceptions or sign off on risks. Some organizations publish policies without accompanying training or enablement materials, leaving employees aware but unequipped to comply. Outdated or conflicting documents across multiple repositories further erode credibility. Addressing these issues requires contextualization, regular maintenance, and continuous engagement with policy owners and users alike. Organizations that excel in these controls apply good practices that scale. They use automation to integrate policies directly into operational pipelines, policy as code, enforcing configuration or access standards programmatically. Concise reader's guides or visual summaries help employees navigate complex frameworks. Quarterly ownership attestations confirm that role assignments and responsibilities remain current, while central policy catalogs provide version control, search capability, and update alerts. These practices keep governance responsive, user-friendly, and embedded within everyday workflows rather than isolated in documentation portals. As supply chains and cloud adoption expand, supplier and cloud considerations become essential extensions of A.5.1 and A.5.2. Policy scope must extend through contractual clauses, ensuring that third parties adhere to equivalent standards of protection. Shared responsibility matrices clarify boundaries between the organization and its service providers, particularly under IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS models. Internal owners should be assigned for each external control domain, accountable for monitoring attestations, reviewing SOC reports, and addressing deviations. Regular assessments and communication with vendors ensure that external dependencies uphold the same discipline expected internally. Governance, in this context, must stretch beyond organizational walls while maintaining central accountability. To demonstrate compliance during audits, organizations should maintain assurance artifacts that substantiate A.5.1 and A.5.2 implementation. These include a policy register listing each policy's owner, version, and review date, documented role matrices or organizational charts showing clear lines of authority, and delegation or accountability letters for key functions. Exception and waiver logs, complete with risk sign-offs, prove that deviations are managed transparently. Training records and acknowledgement receipts serve as evidence that employees have read and understood applicable policies. Together, these artifacts provide auditors with traceable proof that governance is both designed and operational. When executed effectively, A.5.1 and A.5.2 establish a stable foundation for the entire ISMS. The policies provide the rules of the road, while defined roles ensure there are capable hands on the wheel. Their success is measured not only by the existence of documents or charts, but by observable behavior, staff making confident, compliant decisions within a clear governance structure. Together, they create a governance ecosystem where accountability is explicit, direction is consistent, and alignment with organizational strategy is continuous. This foundation supports every subsequent control domain in ISO 27001, ensuring that operational, technical, and physical safeguards are guided by coherent policy and executed by competent, accountable people.